Last week, Taylor Swift released a feature film to coincide with her latest album, and now this week, a film releases to coincide with the latest album by Nine Inch Nails. Genius. Absolute genius. What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you my review for Tron Ares in one take. Now, the plot of this science fiction action film follows a highly sophisticated program who is sent from the digital world to the real world on a dangerous mission. Going into this movie, or I should say earlier this week before seeing this film, I did not know what kind of expectations to have because I had not seen the previous two films prior to Tron Ares. This is now the third movie in the series, so I went back and saw the first two films, and to give my brief thoughts on them, Tron from 1982 is notable for being one of the earliest movies to use computer-generated effects, which I see the appeal of. The world of the grid was really well realized here, and the lead performance from Jeff Bridges as this computer programmer, I thought, made it a good film in my opinion. It has received a cult following, and almost 3 decades later, in 2010, we got the sequel, Tron Legacy, which basically updated the material with the visual effects, of course, and just the whole aesthetic I was into as well. I think it is a good sequel. Neither film is the best written, or at least I found myself lost in some of the technical jargon with me not being the biggest expert on computers, but at the same time, again, I see the appeal of both of these movies in receiving cult followings. So now we have a decade and a half later, Tron Ares as the third entry in this series, and I had some sort of idea now as to what to expect from a Tron movie, and seeing how the material was being updated yet again and also incorporating artificial intelligence, I was curious to see what was going to be done with it. And now, starting out with the cast and their performances, we have Jared Leto as the titular program Ares, basically a militarized version of artificial intelligence. Now, I know many people are not the biggest fan of this actor. I would say that his earlier work is something that I would take note of. His performances in Requiem for a Dream and Dallas Buyers Club, which he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for, deservingly so in my opinion, I think are some of his best work. And here in this film, he is basically playing the character like a robot or a form of artificial intelligence. Very one note, very straight-faced and everything. But that is the character, and I would compare it to what he did in Blade Runner 2049 in 2017 in that similar kind of cadence. And I thought for what he was supposed to do here, I thought it worked, even given a bit of an arc as to what his character is supposed to go through in having some sort of feeling, even though he is artificial intelligence. So there is that. Greta Lee plays Eve Kim, the head of a company, which is the same company from the previous two films, who has discovered a code that is able to take that form of artificial intelligence and have it last longer than 30 minutes and be actualized in the real world. I thought she gave a great standout performance in Past Lives from 2023. And here, I think she is great as well. Her character really does not have that much to her aside from being somebody who does not want to have this code in the wrong hands of a rival tech company. And this is where we get into the movie's villain, Julian Dillinger, played by Evan Peters, the head of the Dillinger Company, which was started by his character's grandfather, who was the main villain of the first Tron film. And his performance is basically just trying to be this cocky and just full of himself technical head. And I thought he worked for what he was trying to do. At times he went over the top and it was a little much, but I think with how these movies are played up in a heightened reality, I guess it fits. Gillian Anderson plays his mother, who is not really so approving of what his son is doing with this whole technology and the tech company. And With some other characters here, Jodie Turner-Smith plays Athena, another form of artificial intelligence that is militarized and is used like Ares to go out in the real world to get the code from Greta Lee's character. And Hassan Minhaj plays the business partner to Eve here as well. Some of the other characters don't get as much to do, but, you know, they were working for what the movie's feel and flow was going for. So I think that with the cast and their performances, they were functional for what the movie had to do. Getting into the writing of the film, on paper, this is probably the most simple of the Tron movies thus far, with how it is basically two tech companies fighting over or racing over a code specifically so that they are able to use this form of artificial intelligence for themselves and have some real world implications with it. Now, I think that with trying to also update the material and have artificial intelligence be a big part of this movie, that was something I wanted to see be done. And this is not really played up too much because it does not go beyond the surface level as to what we're seeing. We see the main character or the titular character of Ares basically be used over and over again. After over 30 minutes, this character basically disintegrates, and then the villain character, Dillinger, is able to laser 3D print another form of Ares and these other militarized artificial intelligences like that. And it goes over and over again in trying to chase after the Eve character who has this code. And you could say that it got repetitive after a while, but also at the same time, the characters in the first place are not too much in terms of how they are written on the page. They are basically just there to get the plot moving in terms of seeing all the action set pieces that are put into play here. And with that, the action and the whole visual aesthetic here, the audiovisual experience that I had watching this movie really is one of the standouts that I had in a movie theater this year. Now, I had the choice with my local theater to see this movie one of two ways. I could have either seen it earlier in the morning in 3D, or I could have seen it later in the morning in the next showtime in my theater's biggest and loudest auditorium. I went with that second option because I thought I was not going to feel like getting overstimulated at 10:10 in the morning while watching this movie in 3D. And seeing the visuals of this movie, even though it has only been 15 years since the previous Tron film, it really had me into what I was seeing here, and how the whole world of the grid, the big crux of this movie, the big appeal of the film is that the world of the grid from the previous two films is brought into the real world. And a lot of the visuals here with the neon lighting, a lot of reds here, even blues that are competing in terms of how we are differentiating the two companies, all of that coming into play and shown off in the real world was really cool to see. There are two chase sequences. The light cycle / motorcycle chases I thought were some of the best parts of the movie. And there are also the hand-to-hand action combat sequences with the discs being thrown and fought with using these program characters and everything else to show that, yeah, the world of Tron is now being brought into the real world here. If you are a fan of the previous two films, there are visual cues and references that call back to those films, and this is also apparent with the use of Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn. Jeff Bridges does briefly return here from the previous two films. He is the only actor from all of these movies to appear just as the same character here in all three films, and I loved Jeff Bridges in what he did previously with the character, and while he does not have that much to do, it is nice to see him tie all of these movies together with the same character, although in digital form this time, given what happened in the previous film. And, you know, yeah, who does not love Jeff Bridges? And that is one thing that I think fans of the Tron franchise are going to love seeing here. Aside from the visual effects and how the movie is shot with some of the action, and then the music. The music of this film is a big part as to the appeal as well. Previously, the previous film was composed by Daft Punk. Now, I love Daft Punk. They are some of my favorite music artists ever, and I could not think of a way to top the score that would be done with Tron Legacy for Tron Ares. But somehow it happened as Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor's band Nine Inch Nails, composed the score here, and it goes hard. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, a popular duo that have worked together for many projects over decades now, are notable for having done the music scores for movies and other media. And here, Trent Reznor with his band, and Atticus Ross is also a producer on this film. What they are doing together, just bringing all of this in terms of the electronic score that fits the whole Tron world, it is propulsive. It is very kinetic. How it all really makes the movie move, especially in the action sequences. Again, the audiovisual experience that you were to have in watching this movie is the reason to go ahead and see this film. The way the movie is all tied together, the movie is directed by Joachim Ronning, and I've never seen anything he previously directed. He previously directed the fifth Pirates of the Caribbean movie and the second Maleficent film, What he has done here, I think in terms of just helming the action and bringing the world of the grid together, whether we're seeing the updated world of the grid and the digital world or the real world colliding with all of that digital space, I thought that it fit in being a natural extension of the Tron universe. Again, in terms of the writing, I do not think that the film did much in really going beyond what was trying to be done in the simple concept of having this form of artificial intelligence being essentially fought over or used with to try and get something that would benefit the other side. And I think that for many people, the story is not going to be something that's going to hold them back from wanting to see this film altogether. Again, the appeal of the film and seeing what it does on an audio and visual level is what you're going to see, or what you are trying to see, just wash over you in the best way possible. Running at about 2 hours, I did think the movie was starting to feel its length towards the end in the last quarter or so, but at that point the movie was already wrapping up. And speaking of the movie wrapping up, there is a mid-credit scene before the rest of the credits are playing, and I think that it is trying to set up something with a fourth Tron movie, if that's even possible. Also tying it into what the first movie started and what was done all together in being connected with these three movies so far. And again, fans of the Tron universe are going to like all of the callbacks that are done here, and it is not required to see the previous two films to enjoy this film. But if you went back to the first two films like I did, yeah, you will be rewarded with some things here and there that are referenced. And with all of this coming together here, I do think that this film is an experience. This is an astounding audiovisual experience that is weakly written across its internal grid. Again, the big thing with what is holding this movie back for me is seeing how the characters are just characterized. The dialogue, when stuff is being said, not everything holds too much weight aside from it being talked about on a technical scale, given that it is the world of computers and the digital world of the grid, and then all these characters just colliding with each other with the digital and real worlds. It is simple on a basic core on that front, but again, once again, the main reason you're going to see this thing is just to enjoy an experience. And I joked in the intro of this video that basically this is a feature-length version or visualizer for the latest 9 Inch Nails album. And for some of it, it did feel that way. But there are worse things out there than being something like that. Taylor Swift last week did that release party for her most recent album, and now with this also being the latest installment in the Tron universe, those that are just wanting to see a feast for the eyes and ears with the latest visual effects that we have seen within the franchise and even for Hollywood movie making today, I think that people will get something out of it. If you were not into the Tron movies prior to this one, I do not think this is going to bring you to the other side, and this is not necessarily my favorite in the series either. It's between the first two movies for me because at least those had some more better semblances of writing on that front. But With all of that being said, if you're going to go see this movie, you have to go see it big, you have to see it loud, see it on the biggest and loudest screen possible so that you get the most out of it. And for what it is, I would cautiously recommend it. With that, my final verdict for Tron Ares is 3 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Tron Ares, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.